I'm excited for today. I want to learn more about the short-term rental success. I'm excited to talk to Aaron. I met Aaron once in person, and he's been a regular here on the Tactical Tuesday. So, Justin, anything you want to get say about Aaron before we get started?
Yes. So Aaron is been in the game for more than 20 years. Aaron's one of the most genuine guys I know. Giant heart for service, right? Really connected. And what's been interesting is we talk about zoning the market, right? And this year, Aaron can do all things. When we're doing it 20 years, hey, I can serve this giant aspect of the market. I've got a big sphere, but he chose to niche down and just talk about STRs, short-term rentals, and build this stream brand. And what we saw was Aaron did in the first quarter as much business as he did all last year. Business totally exploded after, right? After all these years, and it's been really inspiring to watch, like, right, as somebody else who's been in the industry a long time and knows what to do and can do any of these things, to say, hey, I picked this strategy, I went all in, I focused on this strategy, right, and I had tremendous results. So I can't think of a better person with the market that we're in, where some of us are having to adjust, maybe do things a little differently, than Aaron Kavanagh. Like, and so, Drew, I'd love for you to. That's also true, Rob. He didn't focus on something that he loved. So, Drew, I'd love for you, since you haven't met Aaron, let's talk through, like, how did that happen? Like, walk us through, Aaron. Tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get into the industry? What were the '70s like?
The 70s were great, man. Let me just tell you. I'm here in Nashville, Tennessee, actually. We're here for the short-term wealth conference led by one of the larger short-term rental coaching company gurus. His name's Bill Faith. Some of the other people that are here, on stage are going to be Pace Morby and Cody Sanchez. We're in a pretty good company as far as what I'm seeing here now. Nashville, I've never been. Um, Man, I tell you, this is a fun place. um, Fly in, drive, and get to the hotel. I'm staying in downtown DC, downtown Nashville. The lights are shining. I'm on the 11th floor, looking out at the city. It's just gorgeous.
Awesome.
That's part of this game is getting the beauty of what's going on out in the world and in real estate, right? It can be more than just a place to live. It's a lifestyle. You know, it's an energy, really. Um, for me, I've been in real estate 23 years. I was doing fine. Everything was okay, but I was just sort of burning out and didn't feel like I was very good at what I was doing. I was okay, I was a top producer by all the rules. I was, running between 15 and 24 deals a year on average. Really, really solid, agent, no big deal, but just wasn't feeling anything different than everybody else. And so for me, it was okay, what am I going to do different now? And how do I get here? Well, you know, as soon as COVID happened, now I've been through several different markets. I've been through the 2008 decline. I've been through all different types of things, and I've shifted my business once before from mostly listings to mostly buyers during that downtime because I figured it was easier to make money with buyers and then listings at that moment um, back in 2008. And so then, I said, okay, let's do that again. COVID's happening. Let's see what we can do. And wound up with a client referred to me by an agent in the Alexandria office. And they were interested in a market that I had never been in before, but it was, Front Royal, Virginia. Little old place out in the middle of nowhere. And we started driving around and looking at houses, and I didn't have any idea what I was really doing. But they were from Philadelphia, and they were interested in buying a cabin in the woods to just escape from their world. And so once we got into the process, we were now looking at different architecture. We're in the woods, we're hiking trails, we're, along the river. There's all kinds of fun different things that we were seeing. And I'm like, man, this is great, right? And then the house that they wound up buying was a two-bed, one-bath log cabin. Gorgeous property with a nice screen porch, ceiling fan, just sitting in the woods with no sound except for the bugs and the birds and all that stuff. And I'm like, oh, this is definitely something that I have to be, right? just, when you get that feeling in your gut, like, I tell Rob all the time, what's my word of the year? It's peace. That peace can mean a lot of different things, but that to me is like what it really means. Being out there, kind of private, just listening to the world, right? Not the city, but the bugs and the bees and the birds and all that. So anyway, did that, then just started thinking about doing it. Well, long story short, how do I do this business? So as a trainer, as a coach, as a tech person, you're always on Facebook, you're always on social, and you start digging into some of these channels. And so I just typed in short-term rental. And from there, I met a bunch of different people. Um, First and foremost, I met this guy. His name's Corey DiAugustino. He's a partner of mine. He's a friend of mine. Facebook, really brought us together, but he's an investor. He used to work at CoStar, and as a tech person. And long story short, now he's a real estate investor, and he manages between 20 and 40 doors, and he's making solid money rent, helping people and renting his own properties. And so now I'm like, okay, well, he's can do it. Now I can do this. And he's smarter than I am. So then I start digging into even further, and now I'm finding consulting companies. And when I say consulting companies, the interesting thing about short-term rentals is I've never in my entire life seen a business that has more coaching programs than short-term rentals. Like, like, you could go into the computer today and type in short-term rental coaching programs, and there's Vodacy, there's Bill Faith, there's a million different coaching programs that you can buy into as an investor, and they'll teach you how to do it. And then I was like, okay, how do I dig into that? So I started digging into that further, and I found this company called STR Insights. And they are a consulting company. They get hired by the investor, pay the investor pays them $12,000 to use their service to find a property nationwide. And so, start building the network is the key, right? But so I get into the relationship with this company, STR Insights, and they have started handing me 4, 5, 6 leads a week of people looking in our area to buy short-term rentals. Now, I don't know about you, but if you have a lead source that you're not calling, they are calling you, picking up the phone and saying, "Hey, I've got Bob Smith on the line. He's looking at a $500,000 property in your area, is interested in 123 Main Street in Front Royal, Virginia. All you have to do is go out there and take some video of it, get some more detail about the property, and send it back to us. We'll close this deal." Well, that's easy for me. Yeah, I just jump in the boat, right? Let's go. We're going to go. We're going to get the information that we're going to give them. And then I'm going to use my real estate knowledge. Okay, septic. I'm going to say, okay, what else out there? So the first part of what I'm going to talk about is knowing your market. To me, as a buyer's agent, if you don't know everything about your market, you're not a buyer's agent. You need to know the detail about every single thing. What's the rules and regulations? What HOAs do or don't allow these short-term rentals? What are the restrictions from the county? What are the state rules? So I dug in and started figuring out all the rules and regulations around short-term rentals so that we could be successful. Because if they come to me and they say, "I want you to help us buy 123 Main Street," and they can't do it, then I become an idiot. And I don't want that. So I'm now looking at everything in the market as far as the real estate is concerned. So I'm watching the MLS with properties that are coming in, and I'm picking properties that I think are cool, that have a view, that are next to the water, that have a different architecture style, not the same thing that everybody else has. And along the way, as you start figuring this out, like when you go somewhere, you say, okay, what do I want to stay in? I don't want to stay in my house. I want to stay in something that's cool, or something that's a little bit closer to some amenity or whatever that is. And so, just stepping into it one thing at a time. So COVID kind of started that because people were getting away from DC, um, using the internet to generate opportunity through social, and then learning the market better than anyone else are the three key factors of why I jumped into this. Justin.
Justin,
Um, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, when you and I started talking about this, Erin, one of the things that a discussion that we had, and I want people to really hear this, was you had to start saying no to certain things in order
Yeah.
to say yes to this, which
Right.
was a little scary because you were focusing on one thing and you had to let go of it and say, you know what, like Rob, like I want to go all in on this. And there's a certain power in that. You want to speak to it?
Yeah. So as as simple as this is, I was literally burning out from regular real estate. It's not the clients, it's not the the business per se, but it's just the regular real estate is boring to me. It just is. Um, One of the best moves I ever made to begin with was actually joining the team and listening because I'd never done real estate investing of my life, and just listening to the message that Rob and the agent investor model, listening to how people make money, and it just changed the way you start thinking about real estate. And so figuring out that okay, I can do this, and short-term rentals are one of the hottest topics right now because of COVID. This seems like a no-brain. This is a winner win for me, and I didn't see a downside. I mean, I was burning out over here. I'll still do real estate with Sphere and friends and family and all that, but it's not like I'm picking up the phone and calling them say, hey, you need to sell your house, because everybody stopped buying and selling. They went from every 3 to 5 years to 7 to 10 years on the flip. So, you have to have a bigger sphere of influence to make that business happen each year. Well, with short-term rentals, for me, it was okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get out into a new market. I'm going to learn everything about it. So there's opportunity there, number one. And then there is just the love of the game. Like now I'm figuring, okay, this is a money machine. People are actually enjoying what they're doing and or whatever. So, for me, it was not that hard of a transition.
I love that, Aaron. Well, part of it was also when you and I were having dialogue about what peace looked like for you, right? It was a lake house or a cabin in the woods overlooking water. And so like you started marrying a love that you had, a vision that you
Yeah,
have, and then
right.
helping people do that, which puts you in when you put yourself into proximity of doing that, you actually become that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. It's an energy for sure. Like
Yeah.
I'm walking around Nashville right now, right? And I'm just grateful for my wife and who's put up with me for all of this, number one, because it's busy. But at the same time, I'm like, I just walked around. I saw some of the, like Elvis's suits and some of the cool stuff. And I know that there's a bunch of people here for this conference, but like I'd never been to Nashville. It's a cool place. I had never been to Knoxville. Right now, I get to be friends with Corey and Justin and their team, and look at the stuff in the Smokies. Like the opportunity here is just amazing. Not to mention, the opportunity to make some good money having fun. That's the cool part.
So what are the biggest challenges? I think Justin, references like what's the biggest hurdle that if somebody wants to get into this and start serving clients, because there's
Yeah,
two things, right? Like there's serving clients in this space, and then there's also becoming the client,
right.
right, in the space. So maybe talking to the both those things.
Yeah, so the client is multifaceted. There are different reasons why people buy a short-term rental. Um, the first and foremost, most important one is I need a place to go. I want a vacation every year, but I'm not spending $10,000 to go to Disney or to the beach or whatever it is. So I actually want to make some money doing this. And so I think people now looking at real estate differently. So different real estate markets. So for example, you can buy a house on the beach and then rent it out to people when you're not there and make the money back, even if you're not living in it all the time. You can have it actually paid for. That to me is the coolest part. Like it's just a second home that you go and spend time with your family, have a vacation, and then rent it out the rest of the time just to pay the bills. not making any profit, just paying the bills. The second part is, okay, now we're actually going to take our W-2 income. So now I'm working with high income earners, doctors, lawyers, politicians, people that have significant W-2 income that are like, okay, I need to get rid of some of this taxable debt, right? So I'm going to buy a real estate. And learning about what a cost segregation is, the most interesting thing in the world. But basically, you can write off a ton of money off your W 2 just for buying a short term rental. And the next piece of that is now, okay, I'm going to take it from second home, writing off income, to now I'm going to use it as a pure investment. So when I start talking to a buyer, the first and most important thing is to find out what is their strategy. What are they trying to accomplish? Because I can tell you, if you're looking for pure income, the property matters. If you're looking for just a write off, you can buy almost anything you want as long as it's, you know, not losing money, you're good. And if you're looking for a second home, well, that's just different. That's I have to live there. I want to, love it just as much as, renting it out. So, knowing those three parts of why somebody is interested, that's the first thing to learn about them. Um, Next part is, how do they buy them, right? So how do we really buy a property that's going to work for them? So we all know real estate investing, cash is king. You can buy it with cash if you have it. When I was a first time real estate agent, the only thing that I knew at that moment is because when you're dealing with first time agents or first time buyers, they don't know anything, but they're mostly worried about money, right? How do they make or get a loan for a property, and how much does it cost, right? So I dove into every first time home buyer loan there was. Well, same thing here. Let's jump into every single loan that I can think of that's going to work for short-term rentals. So as I mentioned, buying your second home. Well, there's a second home loan, 10% down payment. You can, jump in and buy that property. You can do a 20% down payment, regular investor loan. You can do a what they call a DSCR, debt service credit ratio loan. So that DSCR is based on the income of the property, not the servicer or the person that's buying it. So different loan types. Now that's really fascinating to me. So now there's more learning involved. And I think Rob hits this on the head. One of the things that you have to be when you get into real estate is a constant learner. Um, the real estate game is easy, but learning the process, learning the trends, learning what's going on with different loan types, how to react to people is the key to the whole thing. So,
Can you tell us a little bit about your experience with, I know you don't sell beach, like
yeah,
Airbnbs, but I know that you've done a lot of talking to other people in other markets about the different
yeah.
types, right? Like an STR at the beach versus one in the mountain versus one in the city. Like, how could you educate us around like what you've learned around that?
Yeah, so the answer to that is personality. It's
Mm,
seasonality. Um, it's really, where do you want your money to come from, right? What is your I always go back to what's in your heart, right? So people say, I love to go to the beach. Great. Let's talk about that. So I want to buy something in the Outer Banks. Wonderful. The Outer Banks is a beautiful spot. It's, real estate is, right there. It's just fun. At the same time, it's a 6 month window, really, of income, and then no income. Same applies to a lake house, right? Even if you're in a warmer market, the lake houses don't get rented as often. And so when you're using some of the tools like AirDNA, that's one of the big websites that I use. I go on, log into the system, and on the left hand side, they have these market ratings. And what a market rating is basically three or four factors, but basically they are using algorithms and information as to how people are performing in those different markets. So for example, you can say, Duck, North Carolina is rated 75 out of 100, right? And so that's a great market to buy into because based on the information that I know, the rates are higher, the occupancy rates are good, and the opportunity for somebody is there. But then there's the risk side. And so at the beach, if you're on the water, some of those properties could be gone in 10, 15 years. You never know. That's not an investment that I would be willing to do, but I'm happy to help other people that are interested in that. Does that sound good? Yeah, maybe. But I also know, like at COVID, I had a friend that bought a beach house in Corolla, and she was not able to get onto the island at all during COVID. They closed it down for only the residents that actually lived in the Outer Banks full time. And so during that January to June, she was not able to visit her property. So there was property damage being done from the elements, right? She couldn't maintain the property. She couldn't rent it out. So now she's stroking a check for 6 to 8 grand a month instead of making money. So she's bleeding cash. And then she got into thinking about, well, why do we need this property? We only go here a couple times a year anyway. We were trying to save some money, excuse me, by buying something and not having to pay for a vacation. But now we can't even go here. So why don't we just save that money, sell the property, and then look at where we want to go next time? Um,
Aaron,
so
give us some additional tools, right? You
yeah,
mentioned
so I'm
AirDNA.
I'm using different websites for algorithms for information about how a property would perform. So AirDNA is the main one that most lenders are going to use. Then there's another one called MASHvisor. MASHvisor is a pretty good website that produces properties as well as revenues and occupancies and things like that. And then the last is the one that I like the most is called Rabbu. Um, rabbu.com, and it'll send you an email, which is great, of top performing properties in the markets wherever in the United States, so you get to see them, right? And that's part of the game, and we'll get into that in a second. But it's then now showing you what the information looks like as far as return on investment, cash on cash return, different types of real estate terms that I didn't know before.
Yeah, and now you know,
Now
right?
I
And
know.
now you know. Which,
Yeah.
by the way, puts you in the path of prosperity when you actually start understanding the language of investments and you realize that, oh, I understand this game. I get this game. I could be the investor. What's the platform that we use, Aaron, to manage our vacation rentals? Do you know the one that Kayla uses?
Yeah, so there are what they call property management systems or PMS sites. There's multiple ones, but we use Hospitable.
Mhm.
And what Hospitable is exactly what it is. We have multiple properties. We are on multiple platforms like Airbnb, VRBO, Booking.com. And with each one of those systems, there's a calendar. And so you don't want to book yourself on Airbnb and VRBO for the same time. So Hospitable is a site where we log in, we manage the property, we connect all the calendars in one spot, so we manage multiple properties at one time. There's other sources out there. Guesty is another one. Lodgify, Hospitable, Owner Res. There's multiple, tools like that people can use. Yeah, and Kayla's mentioning, AI is attached to our system, and it really helps her with guest messaging, review responses and things like that. So, oh yeah, the other tool that we use to help with pricing, because it's not the same price every single night, is Price Labs, and that's a dynamic pricing tool. It goes out to the marketplace and does a CMA basically every day of what other properties are renting for that night, and then they match the prices based on what we put in as far as our parameters are concerned. And it automatically adjusts our rates to match the others so that we are competitive in the marketplace, and that's also attached to Hospitable.
Hey, Aaron,
Aaron,
I have a question.
Sure.
The coach in me is dying here. If I'm brand new and I've never done this before, what's my first step?
First step, talk to somebody that's doing this business, right? Find a Corey DiAugustino. Find somebody that knows the game already and can point you in the right direction. There's so much to learn, and so very beginning, for me, I've been doing this since COVID, but I'm not really successful until this year. So if you want to get into this business, what you need to do is step in with somebody that's already, and this is why they have coaching programs, by the way. Like, think about the investor. They're doing the same thing, right? Thinking about the market. They're thinking about, oh, this is cool. And, but why, where, what, how am I going to make money? I can't afford to lose, right? So I would say find the partner, come talk to me, come, find a good investor agent, right? The most important thing I tell people all the time is when you're talking to a real estate agent and they don't know investments, they're not helping you. They're just supplying the house and the actual contract knowledge and basic loan knowledge. They're not helping you with what the investment could be or the exit strategy. So I would say find the right partner that knows the business and then start to learn the loan programs, learn the rules and restrictions, learns the top markets, learn why properties perform better, learn the different tech sources,
Aaron,
what people like.
I'll use a line from Drew. He said, the coach in him, the wealth builder in me asked the question, um, how can an agent start building wealth with this knowledge without having to put any of their own money into the asset? What are some
Yeah,
strategies?
that's a lead-in question. So Rob and I invested in a property that we're actually selling, at this point. Back in 2022, I found it. Just a cool little house, 1,000 square feet, 2 bed, 1 bath, beautiful windows, A-frame scenario. Um, and when we bought it, oh man, it was dangerous. We bought something that we didn't learn the rules, right? Figured it out along the way. We got lucky that the property already had the short-term rental permit before we bought it.
No, it
Um,
didn't.
yeah, I mean, well,
It,
one of the previous owners had it but never used it, so we were kind of grandfathered in. But
yeah.
anyway, long story short, then we bring in Kayla, and Kayla's new to this business as well, but it's a passion of hers as well, and she's managing this property, and now it's producing, 75, 80 grand in gross revenues every single year, and it's one of those things where you learn the game, but I think you got to find the right coaches so you have success initially, or you're going to step into a few piles.
But the point being is somebody could get in and because this is a play for every agent listening, whether it's Airbnbs or whether it's long-term rentals or flipping assets. If you find the opportunity, if you find the deal, if you could structure everything, you can build an equity piece into the asset, kind of like what Justin was talking about earlier, right before he hopped on his call with the Tell Me Something Good, where you could actually get a piece of the equity because of your knowledge, because of your hustle, because of your hard work, not have put any money or very little money into the deal. And I want people to hear that because that is a way for you to build wealth in this game.
Yeah, so yeah, and forgive me for getting off track on that, but yeah, that's exactly right. So now every day, I mean, I may not have the cash deposits to put into a property at the moment, but I have some significant brain knowledge that I can use to help build an investment for someone that has the cash. So finding the right partner is always the best piece of this. You can get into real estate without a single dollar if you had the right partner. And Bird Dog, let me tell you right now, we Bird Dog is probably the coolest thing out there that anyone can do and earn some income, even if they're not in real estate, right? So go find me something that looks cool, that's making money, that somebody's talked about, and then I can buy that, or I can bring one of my buyers to it. I'm going to pay you for that, for whatever the value is, right? And so, Bird Dog is part of this game too. So, just like fix and flip, just like everything else. Justin.
So let's talk about, if you're on this call, maybe you've been exposed, no, you haven't been to Grid, right? Grid is a national investor platform led by agents, puts the agent at the center of the transaction. One of the things that we talk about, the reason we're doing this is we're taking people on a transformational journey to become entrepreneurs and small business owners. And we talk about a framework called the 7 levels of freedom. So you can go look at the Grid Investor website. You can see this thing. And on that 7 levels, one of these levels, once I've got income coming in, and I think everyone on this call is on that path, is how do I set up ancillary businesses? How do I take the same lead, right, and generate more income off the same lead? Because once I crack that code, we know as small business owners, client acquisition, that cost is one of the biggest costs of businesses. So when I find the way to monetize that more than once, you tap into the ecosystem. There's a reason why everyone kisses our butts. It's because like we go generate 10K in commission and we generate 20K in revenue. So one of the easiest ways to do that is property management. And you can do it on the residential side. You can do it on the STR side. On the STR side, stream there. We've got a stream agent in our market locally on my team that runs a property management business. He brought in a guy, Jonas Gordon. He brought in Jetstream. And his job is client acquisition. He has a partner in Jetstream that services all of this property management business for 10%. There's a viable business model. If you want to talk, we can walk you through this. This is a market that makes sense for you at all, where you could be building some ancillary income. And so then you're very real way, just like you do this, I know Dustin's on here, just like we know a lot of people have done the fix and flip play. Hey, I'll go find it and I'll run the play. You put up the capital, we'll split it 50-50. That exists everywhere in the country. Everyone's heard that market before. You could be doing something similar on this property management side. And I wanted to share all that because on Wednesday, tomorrow, we've got a call at noon. If you want this, say yes in the link. We're going to talk about the tax implications of the big, beautiful bill. They brought back 100% bonus depreciation. We can talk about cost segregation as well. Like the tax benefits of these things are pretty ridiculous. You can find high income earners that will buy properties that don't even necessarily cash flow for the tax benefits. And just for context, like in my market, the average median price is 360. Just closed the deal, for 1.9 million.
Yep.
This can be a really great way to add a different revenue line to your business.
Well, and Justin mentions a good thing here. So, having knowledge is one way, right? Having the ability to help people earn money or save money based on taxes, right? Those are all reasons why somebody should invest in short-term rentals. And so when I start thinking about real estate, regular real estate, buying or selling, yeah, it's a place to live, right? It is a positive thing. You get tax write-offs, you get equity gain, you get all kinds of real opportunity when you're buying regular real estate for yourself to live in as a primary residence. In this game, there is significant differences in you've now graduated to the next level, right? So for me, Justin, when you talk about ancillary businesses, my friend Corey DiAugustino, he has a business called Booked and Banked, and he has a menu of services from I can co-host with you, I can manage the property completely. You pay the bills, I get paid 20% to manage that property. Then he has what they call revenue management, and basically it's a once a quarter check in. There's lots of levers that you have to pull when you're talking about, real estate with short-term rentals, and he helps set up your system so that your occupancies are up. I mean, we can talk to Kayla about this, but we were operating our own short-term rentals until we got Corey in there at 55-60% occupancy, and then we went to 80 or 90%, and that's when we started to make some real serious cash. So
And that's revenue management, right? So we're talking about using
yeah,
dynamic pricing,
for
right?
1,500 bucks, he can go in, help you set it up, and then go from there. So yes, there's multiple ancillary businesses that can be done. Now Kayla and I are talking to a company that actually manages the properties from a different angle. They're now handyman, hot tub cleaner, regular cleaners too. So there's multiple businesses that are involved in this business. The press on short-term rentals, and maybe it's because I'm paying attention to my reticular activator is always going about it, but like all I hear in my head now is short-term rentals, and everybody keeps raising their hand about the tax implications. I keep thinking that's the winner.
There's one more big one that's coming, Aaron, that I'm seeing, and then we'll go to Dave, which
Yep.
is concierge services. So if you
Yep.
watch what Airbnb did, Airbnb just brought back co-hosting. Why did they do that? Because they're getting back to the spirit of Airbnb, which was like, hey, I love hosting people like a bed and breakfast. And it got so investor focused, it almost felt like hotel again. So they brought back co-hosting. They really pushed that this year. And then they rolled out this whole array of services. You can book massages, you can book whatever. And so I think, when I say concierge services, things like bridge fills or curated experiences or all of those things are a huge opportunity on that like hosting side. If you don't understand any of this, I recommend you check the YouTube channel for Grid Investor, and how to run an Airbnb. The Knoxville location, we've done two excellent ones that are well produced. This past year is like a 201. One before is a 101. Where in the 201 we go deep into revenue management and optimizing for 5-star reviews and email capture so you can direct book. And if you want to jump into that, if you want the 101, you can go to last year. Feel free to DM us or email. We have our contact info.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
this is something we've covered at a really high level.
the
Yeah.
cool part of this is that in one, channel of real estate type, right? You could have all kinds of business opportunities, and that's the thing that kind of excites me. Not just new markets. Like I never like everywhere I go now on vacation, wherever I go. I was in Savannah last week, and I'm looking at the real estate going, wow, this is great, but I didn't have the city vibe that I was looking for. I get to Nashville and I go on a tour, and now I'm here. I'm like, okay, this is a market that I can invest in. And Nashville is one of the best markets to invest in. At the same time, there are a ton of rules and regulations here that nobody really realizes. And so, what is a rental arbitrage? There's tons of different terms and things like that are out there. It's just really fascinating business, and it's just a passion for me. But if you think about the growth in this business, it's happening right now, and being in this game is really the cool part. Dave Z.
So, Aaron, we appreciate you sharing your life with us and your journey here. Much appreciate you, brother. Question. So, you mentioned something that I want to make sure is not lost on anyone. You said earlier that you started this when COVID happened. That's 2020, and you said, "I'm now finally successful in my mind this year." That's 5 years. So,
Right.
walk us through your transition. Is that I want to make sure that people understand, if they're picking something like this, what it takes to transition to it.
Yeah, so look, the only coach that I had along the way was Rob and the team in reference to real estate investing. So you've got to learn how to real estate invest, number one, right? You got to learn the lingo, you got to learn the game, right? Then you got to learn the property types. Then you got to learn if you haven't done it before, a lot of people just buy and sell real estate in subdivisions on regular public water and sewer. Learning how to do stuff with well and septic and what are the rules and how to make that actually work, right? There's a lot of different real estate things that happen in rural properties, number one. So you got to learn that. Then you got to, like I said, the rules and regs. What is going on and how could somebody get caught in buying a property? We actually bought one and went through the process and got denied the permit and had to pivot, right? And so, yeah, it's one of those things where you spend your time learning the game. I think having the right coach along the way, like we were talking with Drew, to speed up that process. But it's a passion, right? The faster you can get through the information and digest it properly, then you can. There's more stuff that I've forgotten at this point about it than a new person might want to jump into the middle of. Right? I can say that's the very easiest thing, but it's probably more important to somebody. But I took time, I learned the game, and then as a real estate agent, I had to find the lead sources. I did not have any personal sphere referrals that I knew of looking to invest in real estate short term rental wise. And so I had to now find a new lead source. Um, what it's doing for me now is, I've got consulting companies reaching out to me. Hey, I want to help this buyer. He's high income earner. He wants to buy this $1 million log cabin. Awesome. Let's get it done. they're coming to me
Mm.
directly because I'm the only one in the marketplace actually doing it. That's pretty exciting. There are a lot of real estate agents, don't get me wrong, but I'm the only one that's focused solely on this game. And now when listings pop up, those agents are calling me saying, "Hey, do you have a buyer for this?" I'm also getting a lot of agent referrals because they don't want to drive out to where I am and it's only a 45-minute ride. So,
Do you
yeah.
think it was it I know it took 5 years. Do you think you could have transitioned sooner?
When I say success, I mean, I was having success. Don't get me wrong, right? I was
Yep.
selling, you know, I did 20 houses last year total. 10 of those were short-term rentals. That's success, right? 50%.
Yep.
This year I'm at
What's
20.
production look like this
Yeah,
year?
I'm at 24 right now, and 80 or 90% are short-term rentals.
Got it. So it's just, I think, Dave, what I'm hearing is it's pruning, kind of like what you're doing. Actually, Dave is going to be on later this year talking about probate. I'm going to go to
Great.
Rams, just match the face of the name, y'all, of same thing. Been in this established, and looking at my business and going, where is most of my business coming from? This is our classic, right? Strategy. Like this is the MBA strategy of what if I trimmed the stuff that's less productive and doubled down on my most productive lead sources.
Well, and
Yeah.
and you know, thinking now that you mention that, so thinking about a rookie in the NFL, right? They have certain talent, right? That's why they got drafted in the first round. Basketball, whatever, baseball, whatever game you're playing, right? You've got a certain talent. I've got a talent. I love hospitality. I grew up in the restaurant business. That's what I was gonna be. I wanted to own a bar and a restaurant and all that stuff. And then I got out of that because the hours were not what matched my family style. But now
Sir.
I'm back into hospitality. You kind of just lean back into what's natural for you. And so, when you start the game you're, as a rookie, you might be the most talented player on the planet and still have a crappy year because you didn't know the game, right? And so learning the game is a little bit different. It slows down once you have more knowledge and once you have more
Hmm.
opportunity. And so for me, getting into relationships with these consulting companies, that's why I'm here at this conference, is not so much the information that I'm going to hear in the guest speaking, it's the relationships that I'm going to solidify and build, right? Because they will now bring me other opportunities. Now, there's a second piece to all of this that I'm truly excited about. And I wasn't thinking about brand recognition at all before. And so just, looking at what our team does and creating this brand called Stream. Well, what is Stream? Short-term rental, education, acquisition, and management. It just kind of fits, right? And so I'm now at this conference. I'm gonna wear this hat. People are going to talk to me about it. And now it's a national brand to a certain degree. I'm in the room with one's top players, and they're going to see me, and I'm going to really spout it from the rooftops, what we are. And, it's just one of those things where it starts to grow. And, regular real estate, a lot of people just look at their little, geographic area, and that's fine. And they do a lot of business in that area, and that's what they want. Me, I want passive income. I want to be able to teach this to somebody. I want to share the model. I want to grow it to a point where it's nationwide so that I can sit on this beach that I'm sitting in front of and, really have the piece that I'm, bringing in the income by building the model up front, and somebody can just tap into the information that I've already created. It's pretty cool.
Rom had a question.
Yes, basically great job, guys. Rob, thank you so very much for sending that invite yesterday. That really means a lot, and it's a great session, great way to start a morning. Absolutely energizing. So, Justin, great points, buddy. And to answer, going back to David's question, why it took 5 years, and I think Justin, you tried to answer. I think personally, my experience is like you take up anything, you can always master it quickly if you have the right people around you. And
That's right.
that's one of the reasons I love people like Rob Sheves in terms of what they put together here, because you know that right from the beginning, right from the word go, that you have the right people. I've known Erin for a long time. Erin, you may not recognize me, but I used to be in the Chantilly office.
I do
And
recognize you. I remember you. So I used to be a real estate coach. So back in 2012, I got divorced. I needed to have a more regular income. And so I started coaching and training agents in reference to the tech that KW was offering. And, so I would go into the Chantilly office. I would meet with Ram on a weekly basis, help him build his database, get things squared away, learn how to use Facebook and Craigslist and all the tools back then. And today it's the same model, right? Where you just, who do I need to be in the room with that's smarter than I am, that I can learn one or two pieces of information on a day-to-day basis so that I can keep growing my business. Ram has been very successful with his business along the way. And, I don't know where your business stands today, but I'm sure, you're still doing pretty well.
Yeah, I'm in constant touch with Rob in terms of where I am. So he pretty much knows and follows me pretty much what I'm doing. So the general comment that I wanted to make it to the room is that whether you have 20 plus years experience, like some of us here, or whether you have just 2 years experience, one of the best things you can possibly do is have the right mentor. And that is the power of the whole system. You don't need to be the expert. You don't need to be the strategist. You don't need to be the everything. You just need to have the right people and know the right bandwidth in terms of what exactly you can handle and bring the right team along, because it's not necessary that you have to do everything yourself. You just have the right people and tap into them. I think that is the best thing that can happen to a place like this, where you
Yeah.
tap into the other people, and also don't think you are alone, because it's all a powerful network that you've got. And that being said, I think every one of us who starts even today on short-term rental is absolutely phenomenal in terms of being part of this particular group right now. I think that is what is the power of this whole group.
Yeah, for sure. And Ram, thank you for bringing that up, because that leads me to one of the actual points of what I was going to talk about today. So to be successful in this business, there is 3 or 4 P's that I really go after. And so we always talk about what's the term?
Acronyms.
Acronyms. Thank you, sir. So the three P's, the first and most important is the property, right? You got to find the right property. You can't just buy a house and assume that it's going to rent well, right? And when I'm out there, I'm researching what people are actually looking at and what are the top performers. What does that house look like? That's number one. So when you find the right property, that includes being next to a river, having the right view. Is it already a short-term rental? Does it have the amenities? There's a lot to buying the right property, first and foremost. Second is pictures. This is internet dating, right? Somebody wants to go and rent your place, you have to have the sexiest property on the planet. And the only way to do that is to have the right photos. If you don't have the right photos, something done with your phone or something like that, they're just going to pass right by you, because the competition is so severe wherever you go, whether it's the Smokies, Nashville, anywhere, right? You have to have the right photos to make this go. The last piece, and this is what I was tying into what Ram was saying, is the right people. Kayla can tell you, based on managing the property, that having the right people in your corner to manage that property actually is the win, right? That's behind the scenes that nobody gets to see. I can do all the front stuff and make it look good and have the right pictures, but if I don't have the right systems in place or the right people behind me to manage the property, it's not going to perform well, right? It's all about the review. So there's the first three. The last one is we use this lightly, but it's pricing, right? There, when you're looking at what is a 5-star review, there's 6 criteria, and the last one is considered value, right? So an interesting story is I'm selling a property right now that was, I've been watching it. It's a sexy house. It's called Ava Shenandoah. If you ever want to look at what a Airbnb should be, Google Ava Shenandoah. And when you get there, you're going to see this amazing property with amazing views, and it has everything, right? Well, guess who's selling that property today? Me. And I'm only the reason, is the relationship that I built with this builder, the guy that owns that house, and I've just in the room with that guy, and he's like, "Hey, I want to sell my property. I'm going to move into a different line of business. I need you, right? And so we were talking about listing it, and then I said, well, here's our fees to do that, and he didn't want to do that. That's fine. Well, I had the buyer, so he called me back, and how did I have the buyer? Well, that was just other conversations that I had because I'm in the room, right? So, but what I know about that property is he was making on Airbnb alone $120,000 a year, which, by the way, paid all of his bills and gave him about 60 grand in profit. But what I didn't tell you is he actually created $350,000 in gross income through direct bookings and marketing. Okay, now I'm selling a $700,000 property for 2.1 million because of the revenue generated by that property. I'm in conversations with this guy on how he did it, what the tools are that he's using, how to manage the property differently. Like, there is so much that I learned in the last 60 days just by being in business with this guy. How to use Instagram, how to use other marketing tools to really generate um, just a a huge win. Like, could you imagine 400 grand in gross income on one singular house that he built for 600,000? That, I mean, that can be done, right? Justin just had a property that he sold that was Disney themed and all of that. It was 2.4 mil, right, Justin? Like, that thing, if marketed properly, could have made 800,000 bucks, just by using this guy's strategy. And so now I know it. I know the tools that he's used behind it, but it starts with the first P, and that's the property. The first P is always the most important.
And how much you're selling it for now?
2.1.
Nice.
2.1. Yeah. Mahmoud, it's crazy. He built it himself, but now I will tell you this. There's more to it than that, obviously, but it's a cool house. He's building a Hogwarts castle right next door, being built by a company out of Texas. They're going to build it in their warehouse and deliver it and put it on the side of the mountain with a view, and then so now it's totally theme based. So he's got Ava Shenandoah, and now it's a Hogwarts it's called Wizard's Peak is what he's calling it. And then there's going to be you know Instagram and other website stuff right behind it that's really going to push this thing over the top. And then there's a fourth site or third site that's going to be a mirrored, all glass mirrored building that can be built on it next. So it's not just buying the property, the singular real estate, it's buying that entire business for the 2.1. But I get to be a part of that, which is really like, if you just go there, you're like, oh, I've seen this house before. I'd love to stay there. And it's not, it's really just an interesting model for me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I want to
So-
thank you, Aaron, for jumping on, right? To go back here, like a couple of basic frameworks that we teach all the time. Zone, Julianne is going to email everybody a link to that meeting. It's tomorrow at noon. If you want to talk about the tax implications of the one big beautiful bill, if you can also put a link, Julianne, in for the two, how to understand STRs and all Aaron's information, because Aaron is teaching and coaching on this. He ran Grid Shenandoah Valley, great resource there. So monthly he's putting out content around this that's free that you can tap into. Also, there's a book, Tax-Free Wealth by Tom Wheelwright. Tom is the accountant for Robert Kiyosaki. So if you like Rich Dad, Poor Dad or Cash Flow Quadrant, like, it is written at that same level where you're reading and you're like, this is the same thing. But it is I've been to some speaking of these events, right? Been to some very, very high level seminars, and that's the language we were breaking through. Tom came and spoke to us, but it will break down cost segregation, how depreciation works on properties, the Augusta rule, which is something everyone should know about. You could potentially be monetizing your property. You could be using the Augusta rule, by the way, to monetize personal residences if you use them for businesses. And there's some simple paying your children. Like, we can dive into all this stuff, but keep in mind, I think we sleep on, right, Aaron, tax strategies. Everyone's focused on cap rate over here and whether I have 6 or 8%, and they're leaving massive amounts of money on the tax strategy side. If you master the tax strategy side, then all of a sudden you may have sellable assets in your market right now that no one else can sell because they don't know how to position them correctly, right, for their audience. And
Yeah,
that's another blue ocean strategy.
just to think about, so I started, 5 years ago doing this, and I've mostly built my business on the buyer side of the business, working
Hmm.
with these consultants. Well, we all know that the listings are the power, right? Well, now I have a few lead sources that are generating legitimately 4 solid buyers a week from the consultants, minimal, four solid buyers. And I'm also part of another, it's a more internet based lead system, which is always what I've done anyway, that are putting, in the last 30 days, I put 25 new people into my database
Yeah.
legitimately, right? And so the lead sources are there. I have enough buyer business. Now I just need to do what we are all taught to do. And for me, I know the markets pretty well. So now I can see an absentee owner in Bryce Resort that, and then pull up his property and see if he's performing well, and pick up the phone and go, "Hey Bob, I see that you have an Airbnb at Bryce Resort. Are you interested in selling that?" Because a lot of people bought these properties during COVID to get away from the city, but didn't necessarily get into it for the actual business of short-term rentals. So now I'm building a second part of this business rapidly by having basically the market cornered. I have the buyers. I'm now going to go after the listings, right? So now I can double end these deals significantly and really ramp this business up to a point where, I might need to hire Drew to help me manage this thing, right? Because
Hmm.
he's the master at this game.
Man,
Yeah. And niching down builds it's a real proven strategy. So Aaron's in the Shenandoah Valley. I'm in East Tennessee. So we have the Smokies, 15 million visitors a year. We get the same number of visitors as the next three national parks in the country.
Yeah.
So and so it's jump into stream if you want to talk about this. We are at a different end and we're seeing what happens to saturation and like how you get 18,000 cabins, lots of them are getting left behind. And what I would share is, but it's the same thing we talk about all the time. Like, why do we run the agent investor play? Because you can build a model where you can monetize multiple streams of income, because you can build relationships that are multi-transactional. So we both have run this, getting in with consulting companies, a multi-transactional client. Same thing with like a hedge fund or an institutional investor or something, multi-transactional client. Snapper was on here. I don't know if he's still on here. He's asking some great questions about building a brand. If you got to go, please jump. I know we're
Yes.
we're we're
The
in
the
overtime
brand
here,
the brand
but
thing is
Snapper,
is really a great topic too. That's a whole nother
did you
hour long
see his?
discussion.
So the short version of it, he just asked, is it possible to build a brand around a portfolio and then use these OTA platforms to
Yes.
build that brand, right?
Yes.
OTAs are going to be, I forget what this stands for, but like Verbo, Booking, directbooking.com.
Yes.
And Snapper, you can build, let's say, like a stream brand of portfolio. The direct booking side, it's getting around, it's how do I have a specific brand? So I throw out a brand, Lakeside Legacy. At Lakeside Legacy, it's your escape. Lakeside Legacy features, if you mention that 7 times in there, someone might go Google Lakeside Legacy and find your direct booking site. That's the that's the most direct play that I've seen to like, build direct booking. The other plays are once you're on site in the property, there's nothing stopping you from promoting direct booking directly all you want to people, offering incentives. When you reach out with an initial text message, hey, I'm going to text you when you're there, you'll see that call to action. You just cannot do it through any of those platforms. Those platforms will catch you. AI is only getting stronger, right? Aaron, you can expand on it, but I just wanted to answer that
Yeah, I
niche
mean,
question
so
because I was reading the comments.
yeah, so looking at, let's just use the Ava Shenandoah for example. So he created an Instagram following that was immense, right? And so part of his process to build that brand was, as he's building the house, he's saying, check this out. What, and it's a flow, right? So I start from the very beginning, the foundation. You're actually watching them build the house, and then all of a sudden you're watching a transition into guests booking the property and staying, and it's all experience based, right? So he's building that brand along the way. Well, that's how he built $350,000 worth of gross revenues off of his website through Instagram and using marketing. He actually hired a company, a content company called the Content House out of New York City to come and film the property, put people in the thing, and be like actors and stuff like that. And then he actually spent $1,200 to $1,500 a month in ads on Instagram pushing his property, which totally paid off. Obviously, based on selling the property at significantly high number, and having gross revenues of over $400,000 for multiple years. So like Snapper is saying, build that brand, and you can, there are multiple ways to do it. Well, now a lot of people are talking about different parts of the business. Like, I'm going to build a micro resort. Well, what the heck is that? Right. And that's 8, 9, 10 cabins on a 10-acre parcel that people can go and stay.
Yes.
Well, that's a whole different set of
That's
Airbnb
that Kai.
rules.
That's that Kai Andrews play, right?
Yeah.
That we were talking about with the grid leaders. So, anyways, appreciate it. We're at overtime. It is Take Territory Tuesday, so we're going to get off here and go take some territory. Want to thank my co-host with the most, Drew Swirsky. See him taking notes over there. Erin Kavanagh, thank you so much for jumping on. We
Thank
will
you.
make sure everyone's got Erin's contact information. We're going to email that to you. Thank you, Ampy. We appreciate you being here, joining us. Thanks, Julianne. And we will see you next week. Check the calendar, check the lineup. We have an incredible lineup coming up for the next 6 weeks. If you could do one thing, if you got any value out of this, invite somebody. Let's create a conversation. I love what Ron said about the community, right? We can create the community we crave. And what I have found is when I create communities around education growth, great referral partnerships come out of that. Great capital relationships come out of that, right? Like attracts like. We're the average of the 5 people we hang out with the most. So let's top grade that. So I'm sure y'all know some great people. I'd love to see them next week. Drew, be excellent. Erin Kavanagh, thank you very,
Thanks,
very
Aaron.
much.
Yep. Cool.